Hello and welcome to Women's Biz Global. I am your host, Annie Gibbins, and today I have a beautiful guest. Her name is Sarah Blake. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Annie, for having me. It's so exciting and so much to talk about.
We are going to be talking all things conflict and mediation. Oh my goodness, don't you instantly go, oh, I hate that.
I was going to say, you're squirming already.
But I know you are a champion of it. For those of you who do not know Sarah Blake, where have you been? She is a conflict strategist, an award-winning mediator, a best-selling author, and a corporate trainer. And she actually loves the whole topic that we often shy away from, which is conflict resolution. So welcome to our program, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. Do you know what? It's so great to have the opportunity to talk about conflict, because I was once given the advice, don't talk about conflict. No one ever wants to hear about it. And I just don't believe that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what is it that you actually do? If you actually work on resolving conflict, what does that actually look like?
I help people have difficult conversations and get clarity so that they can make really good decisions. Because when we're in conflict, when there's problems, we get overwhelmed with emotions, we get overwhelmed with lots of information, or perhaps we don't take on information. So I help people wrestle through that to be able to find some calm and to be able to navigate conflict towards problem solving, towards resolution.
So good. And have you always loved it?
I'm the eldest child of two younger boys. My father is a barrister and I'm actually a second generation mediator. So I've kind of lived with this language with my whole life. I don't think conflict was something that I ever liked, but I've learned to embrace it and I've learned to find my way through it.
Which is so important, that you have to learn yourself before you can then obviously help others, and particularly at a corporate level.
Yeah.
And you are working in some pretty amazing international environments of big business, big companies who get to those sort of stage and go, yeah, we're just not gelling. We're just not finding a common ground. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There's money involved. There's reputations involved. There's, huge amount at stake.
Yeah.
So what have been your biggest lessons about conflict?
Look, I think for me, it's always been really important to walk this path authentically. So I had to learn not to fear conflict before I could really help anybody else. So my biggest lessons really were when I feel those butterflies in my tummy, that brewing of a conflict, to really pause. So I've learned discipline around how I approach what I do. I've learned to breathe when I feel it and ask myself curious questions. It's always about what matters to me, what matters to them, where do we want to get to, and what might be the best way to get there.
That is such a gold nugget right there. Just think about that. Everyone watching, listening in. Seeing it from different sides.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When something is important to us, we're passionate about it, there's a lot at stake, we then start seeing it only through our own lens, if you like, and which is a very subjective perspective. And it's very hard to see it from someone else's perspective.
It's really hard to feel it and consider it from the other person's perspective if you think they're wrong, if you don't like what they have to say, or what they say generates values-based emotion. So it hurts. That's not how I feel. That's not what I believe in. So we don't listen very well when those things happen. And so it becomes really hard to think about, well, what might be important to them?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. At that stage, you're often thinking, I don't care what's important to you.
Yeah. And, they might be
I'll
terrible.
say it, everybody. I'll say it. I know. We like to be all lovely, whatever. But sometimes you go, I don't care what your perspective is. That's why I'm not willing to meet in the middle.
That's right.
Because I want 100% here.
Look, and I always say to people, I'm not in the business of rainbows and fairy tales. Okay, so if you want that fairy tale outcome, you probably don't come to me because life is messy. What I want to do is help you all come to an outcome that you can live with. Now, that might be with the other person negotiated, or it might be that that person just is not prepared to negotiate, that you're not prepared to budge from your line in the sand. So the conversation shifts to, okay, so what can you get out of this? How can you get an outcome you can live with that enables you really to live more peacefully? We don't have to deal with them, but you have to live with this.
Yeah, Exactly. Because sometimes if you could have got the win, lose, lose, win, that's life. And that's what we go for when everything is healthy.
Yeah.
But it's when you actually have to go, that's right, when you said what you can live with,
Yeah.
that means that you can then have closure and move on.
That's
right.
Right.
And that is worth a lot.
It
with
is.
Your emotional energy, financial energy. There's a huge cost to keeping something on the table unresolved.
Look, and I think that I work really closely with lawyers because I know we often in business find ourselves in contract disputes, in disputes about money, and we go to court. We're used to doing that. And there is a time and a place for that. And I want people to understand knowing your rights is important, but also we don't want to just assess from a legal lens, right? Because if we're only seeing lawyers and hearing that advice, that's all we hear. And for those of us that have been in business for a while, we know conflict is much more complex than that. You know, you've got relationships, you've got reputations, you've got your emotional well-being, you've got your physical well-being, you've got the growth and productivity of your team. So you've got to start looking more broader.
Yes, exactly.
We are human and we're messy, and let's embrace that as an opportunity.
And I love that, the fact that you can get to that stage, and we often shy away from that. And I know we've got a great viewer question coming in that regard as well.
Sarah, what is the best way to deal with conflict?
Great question. I love questions. So the more questions you can ask me, the better. But how do we deal and manage with conflict? Really, the first point of call for all of you is to stop and just breathe. Before you react, before you get angry or make big decisions, I just want you to breathe, because when we do that, we create some space mentally to be able to more critically think about what's going on. It helps us manage our emotions and brings them down so we can respond more strategically rather than reacting more. And that means that we make better decisions. We can take on more information. We can be a little bit more critical and analytical in our assessment of what's going on. Once you've done that, have a think for yourself around, what do I need out of this, and what matters to me? What matters to the other person, and how can we come to a solution? And if we can't get to a solution with the other person, what can I do that allows me to move forward and carry on? Sometimes that means parking our ego and letting go of things. Sometimes that means playing hardball. But you've got to have a vision on that long game, what you're working towards, rather than just winning some points right now. So we're taking a breath, we're thinking strategically, we're gathering information, and then we're committing to a decision and action.
That is such a great response, and thank you to our beautiful viewer Karen for asking that question, because that's it. Where do we even start? How do we actually approach it? Gold nuggets there from Sarah Blake. So Sarah, from a business perspective, what do you actually see as the biggest challenges for women trying to navigate this space?
Look, I find that for many women, we aren't used to dealing with the hard realities of conflict. We either avoid it, so we pretend it's not there, and we kind of let it simmer away. We might get a little bit passive aggressive because we are feeling resentful, but we don't actually want to step into the hot pot of conflict. So it brews, and then by the time it erupts, it causes a lot of damage. So one of the things is to really, when you first see that red flag, is to respond to it early. Be confident and curious. And I think that's the thing, is shifting your mindset from thinking about conflict as a negative, fearful thing to seeing it as, hey, there's some problems here. What might this be about? And how can I address it in a really constructive way? And for women, that's a little bit uncomfortable, I think, because we often prioritize relationships, and we often prioritize how we get on together and making everyone feel good, and that matters. But sometimes it also gets in the way of problem solving. So I do encourage you to really analyze those red flags early and be brave to ask those questions of those red flags as women. Don't avoid them because they make you feel uncomfortable. The mindset shift is, hey, this conflict might actually lead to fantastic innovation. If we can do something here, we actually might be able to leverage this and elevate our business to the next level. So if you've made a mistake, yes, it hurts. No one wants to make a mistake. We don't like it. I made one this week, right? So I had to deal with it. But when we do that, it leads to really great outcomes.
I'm hearing a lot of realignment with head and heart in what you're saying, right? And as particularly as women, I'm quite happy to say it, happy to own it myself. It's just things can become very personal, very emotional, and it can be really hard to actually see it from that sort of factual, pragmatic position. A lot of what you shared is actually saying, hey, you've got to be strategic. You've got to know why you're trying to do this, what you're wanting to know, how you're going to measure your success, how you're going to move on, what you're going to be comfortable settling with. And so therefore, it's almost like you're helping women sort of have the permission to go, you know what, you're going to have to sort of see it in a slightly different way. You don't have to go totally lawyer level because that instantly makes us go, well, then you don't care, right? And that's what I'm quite happy. I'll just speak for the viewers. That's how I'd be like going, but that's then you're just making it illegal and then you're not appreciating my issue. And let's face it, every issue is someone's personal heart.
Right? Absolutely.
Right? And as a self-declared heart warrior, I'd instantly think, oh, that's not going to work. But when I'm totally in my heart, I can't then be flexible to then meet in the middle. So finding this middle ground, is this what you actually find is the biggest way that people can focus to, you know, move to progressing their skills, I suppose, in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk about this a lot. We have to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So that's that discomfort. It's a balancing between the emotive and the emotions and the value, the heart-centered, and the pragmatic and the practical, because both of them are important and bring something to the table. But when we're out of balance, we're not making wise decisions. So when we can find the space, and I often refer to this as holding space. You want to hold space for both the heart and the head. And when you can do that and find that gem, that golden moment, that sense of, this is the right decision, that's a powerful decision. And those are decisions that can take you not just to a sense of peace and healing resolution, but to a whole new level of innovation.
Oh, I love that. I love that you love it, and I love that you help people on their way. And I'm immediately thinking, well, how do I approach this? How do the viewers approach this? Sometimes for me, you know, it's actually just writing things down because I'm a list girl, right? You know, I don't know if many of you are list girls, but, you know, I basically am at heart. And so for me, it's like pros, cons. So I can get that. I can try and turn my heart. I can put my emotions. I can identify what those emotions are and then park them and then go, but what are the pros and the cons for me? What are my non-negotiables?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and sometimes I want all of it, but actually two are only non-negotiable. You know, getting actually clarity around that aspect is huge. And I bet you see people approaching it in such different ways. Like here's Annie Gibbins going, I'd go to the whiteboard. I'd have to just map it all out. But you must see people going, oh, we all unpack it in different ways.
Visually, that whirlwind going around, right? And it's picking up all the dirt and the debris and everything. And it's just hard to make decisions when you're like that. So I'm a writer too, so I will always write down. I love the whiteboard because it gets me out of my head and onto paper. But for many people, that is so far out of their comfort zone, they're not used to doing it, right? So that's why someone like me can come in and just ask the questions, or even find somebody else that you trust that can be neutral. So they're not taking sides, they're just there to ask interesting questions. And that just sometimes helps you name your emotions or name your feelings without being driven by them.
Oh, that is so good, because you're going to ask different questions. You know, those questions aren't going to be what I'm rattling around in my head. You're going to come in there from that objective perspective and start delving into fact-finding, positioning, what's more important, what's less important, what's really ticking you off here, what's driving you to stay in conflict. Sometimes people can just actually get fueled by the conflict, you know.
Look, you know, and I see it because I've been doing this for 26 years, right? So I know the right questions to get out. And I always park my ego because I usually know some of the questions, but they need to do it. And I think those moments when people pause and go, oh, that's what it's about. That's that pivot moment where they shift from being stuck in the conflict to, hey, there's hope, there's a possibility through this.
I'm going to ask you a random question.
Please.
What percentage of people do you actually think don't know what the true problem is? They're in the fight. The fight's going on. They're already trying to resolve, but with the questioning that comes in, they actually didn't know what they were truly fighting about.
I would say this is really rough estimate, but probably 85% plus, because they are so embedded in the moment.
Yes.
They are so caught up in the adrenaline, the anxiety, the stress of the conflict,
Wow.
that they've actually, they're unable to say, hey, what is it that we really want? And even when you've got your lawyers involved, even when you've got a team around you, often they're all there for the battle as opposed to being there for the resolution. And there's a very different philosophical approach to the conversation there. So I do a lot of pre-work. So I don't just get people into a mediation room. I do a lot of one-to-ones, because what that does is it helps people get to a place of, I think I know what this is about now.
And then makes it way less emotional when you're there. Yep. Particularly, I love anything that does pre-work. It certainly helps me, because I'm a bit of an emotional roller coaster. And it just allows me to go, we've actually gone through the scenarios. I know what to expect. I can put myself there and just be more focused on the outcomes. And as for myself, like as a business strategist, I actually totally see that, because I'm all into the outcomes. How am I going to measure the success? I'm looking for the other side, which is so great to be having this conversation with you, because from some parts of me in my comfort zone, of course, you'd actually approach everything to be able to go, well, what are you going to accept as a positive outcome? Whereas when it's emotional, or when it's to do with another party or multiple parties, suddenly all of this,
it's overwhelming.
Expertise is needed, because it is so overwhelming.
Look, I think that we forget in times of when there's difference of opinions, when there's confusion and when there's change, it creates conflict. Conflict often is chaotic, because we don't know what we're doing. What do we do with it? We're reacting and we're overwhelmed. And what my job is to do is to help create some clarity of process as much as anything. It's the structure, and it's slowing it down. So from this place of conflict, we can have a bit of sense of a safety. We talk about what are our needs. When we feel safe and secure, when we have a bit of clarity around what we're working towards, we're better able to process information.
Yes, particularly for women, that you've got a bigger trigger on feeling unsafe. Safety and security is a huge foundational requirement. And so as soon as you feel like you're out of your comfort zone, then comes the more reactive, defensive, self-protective. And fair enough, because when you feel out of control, it is your reality.
You go into survival mode, right? Exactly. And I think we undervalue that in a way. We don't want to stay in survival mode, but it is important sometimes, and it is what gets us through. My thing is that we can't stay in that place of survival, because it does not great things to our body physically.
It burns you out real fast.
Exhausting. But it also means we're hypersensitive to the minute points of difference or disagreement. So it means that we're kind of on the front foot for a fight all the time. And we see something that others will say, hey, that's not a big deal. Why are you stressing about that? But for us, it really matters. So we've got to monitor as women, particularly in leadership roles, particularly over the last few years, we've had to adapt quickly. We've had to use a lot of brain power, and it has been exhausting. So I guess too, there's a point of how are we counterbalancing that survival mode? How are we nurturing ourselves? How are we creating that sense of inner peace so that we have these reserves to deal with conflict when it does happen?
What have you learnt most about yourself?
Love that question. One of my most memorable lessons about conflict was done in a remote community, and I learned that conflict was causing me enormous fear. It was holding me back from growth. It was my fear of things going wrong or not being perfect or not being able to do it. So I cloaked myself in this barrier of, oh, yes, I can do it. And instead of just acknowledging that the fear's there and it's okay. So when I acknowledged that, that was probably my biggest lesson. And the second lesson that I learned just recently was that I found myself in conflict that deeply hurt my heart. It was family conflict. It was real and raw that we all go through. And I was so busy waiting for somebody else to give me hope. I was so busy waiting for someone else to give me the answers, to fix this for me and tell me everything would be okay. And when I realized that I'd handed my power to other people. And so the shift then became I take my own power. I take responsibility for my own hope. And I can't control what anybody else does or is, but I can control how I move forward. And taking ownership of that has just transformed the way that I do what I do.
Oh, I thank you for sharing that real honest reality that we all struggle. And that's a classic example of in your professional hat, hey, this is just what I do. I go in there, I'm not emotional. I don't have to deal with all those things that other people do. Whereas when it is personal to you, you're in that same, you've got that same hat on that your clients have, that all these other people have and it's not comfortable. And it is really, really easy to go, surely someone's going to rescue me. Surely someone's going to help me at this time. But also by doing that, and it is nice when they do, let's face it, please give me a hand here. But also there is incredible power that you have to then, when you step into that ownership of the situation and yourself and your choice and your power to actually take that next step confidently yourself, it takes you to that next level, right?
And how can I ask people to be uncomfortable in conflict? That's what I'm asking to do in my work if I'm not prepared to go there myself. So for me, I had to walk the talk. And I know what it feels like to claim my own power. And I think, I would love for more women to find that in themselves. And it's not always rosy, right? Running our businesses is hard work. Things go wrong all the time, but it's this inner strength to say, hey, I need some help, or hey, there's a problem here. Let's take some time out to think about why and what we can do about this. Permission
to actually just have a pause and to reset, rethink, re-energize, get supported, get a different perspective, find yourself a better sort of safe tribe, if you like. Definitely come to Women's Biz Global to be able to say, you're worth it. Your worth is huge, and it is our ultimate self-love, self-respect, self-appreciation that takes you to that next level. So you have some pretty exciting things coming up though. Tell me what is happening in the world of Sarah Blake.
Look, it's going to be a really big year. I'm launching my online course very shortly. So it's called Grounded Conversations. And it's really about giving people some of these skills to have the hard conversations in a safe way. So I'm really excited about that one. The other thing that's super exciting is I've just established my own not-for-profit called MART with some colleagues. And we are providing remediation services for issues like modern slavery, for environmental issues, for negotiations of native title rights, things that require complex multi-party negotiations. And we're bringing together subject matter experts and mediators, and we're training them to do the work of remediation. And I'm really excited because this is going global and we're responding to needs both of companies and the victims that are experiencing this. So there's big things happening. There's lots of exciting opportunities, and really getting that message out to the world that it's okay to be in conflict. It's okay that things are messy. We just need to talk about it. And being curious and brave matters.
Exactly. Got to put those big girl hats on and go, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to dig deep and find this new sense of self, this new sense of power, be empowered and be okay that it's going to take some time and it will be messy and you'll go through a few potholes and you'll cry a bit.
We've all been there.
It's okay. We've all had those moments, but it is so worth it. And congratulations to you. I think you should be so proud of yourself. I'm super proud of you. And now a global community of everyone watching around the world is like going, way to go, Sarah, because I love it when we can celebrate a woman who is just so confidently owning her space and her skills and her expertise, and then taking it to next level and happy to, share that knowledge and expertise with others, and then to create a non-profit and to be able to do really good works. That seriously makes your heart sing. That is legacy building. And
that's what this is about.
Writing history while you're living it.
While living it. Yeah, it's so daunting and exciting, and it is legacy, and it is about making a difference. And I think for so many women in business, yes, we want to build a successful brand, we want to make money, we want to provide a choice and opportunity, but we also want to make a difference.
Yes.
And it's such a privilege to be able to do that.
Oh, thank you so much for being on
Thank
Women's
you.
Biz Global today. To our beautiful viewers around the globe, how amazing is Sarah Blake? I know you're going to want to reach out to her, and you can do that through smblake.com. So just reach out to Sarah, check out what she's got, look out for that new program. You can even find her very easily through the media links that I've got with my show on womensbizglobal.com as well. She's very friendly, as you can see.
I'm up for a conversation.
She's definitely up for a conversation. There's no better woman who you want to reach out to go, oh my gosh, yeah, that's right. I'm one of those women who've avoided conflict. And you know what? You're not alone.
Yeah.
Most of us, in fact, I'd have to go, like you're probably in the 99 point something percentile, who go, you know what? Conflict resolution isn't one of my big loves. And fair enough. But the great thing is you get better at it. The great thing is Sarah is an expert in it.
Yeah.
She lives it, she breathes it, she's good at it, it doesn't have to be traumatic. You may want to just connect with her from a personal perspective or from a professional perspective. You may have a business that actually needs to really step up the way you are managing your conflict resolution, your negotiation in a corporate way. And that is so important for corporate culture. We don't even have time to tap into that yet. But
Next time, right?
Oh my gosh, that's our next, definitely our next episode, because that is a whole space that is just so important. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.